Welcome, our first guest of the morning, ladies and gentlemen. He is career pro investigator in criminal justice, UFO researcher, former police officer, and fraud investigator. And he's become my friend over the years. He is James Clarkson. Let's hear it for him.
Thank you, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here in McMinnville, and most especially at the Hotel Oregon.
All right. Make sure we have everything here. All right. So, anybody know what happened May 11th, 1950? Just that way or that way? There was a famous UFO sighting, and it was witnessed by the Trent family, Paul and Evelyn, actually on May the 11th, 1950. And there's the paper here in town that covered this. The Registered Guard put this. It wasn't immediately. It took, kind of like the Phoenix Lights, where everybody had to wake up to the reality. So it wasn't immediate that this was. It wasn't front page news like next day. It was like weeks down the road. And, of course, that spurred a whole bunch of media coverage, as you might expect, interest. And here's what's really interesting about the Trents is in today's day and age, when everybody's out to fake evidence and put whatever they want on the internet and said, this is a UFO, this is an alien spacecraft, and you have to trust me, they did this in 1950 when the technology, we can argue, did not exist to fake this. And they didn't seem to make a dime from this. They wanted absolutely no money. In fact, they didn't even want to do interviews. And here's the telling point. They didn't want to profit off this. They actually turned the original pictures over to the interviewer. The interviewers destroyed them. They didn't get them back for many, many years. As I said, they didn't want to make any sort of money. They didn't want any sort of notoriety. They didn't even want their names out there. And in fact, late in their life, they actually said they wished they had never come forward. Well, I will say, on behalf of everybody in this room and McMenamins UFO Fest, thank you, Paul and Evelyn Trent, for coming forward and saying your story, telling your story.
Absolutely.
And so, James, this may date you. Were you alive when the Trent UFO sighting actually happened?
No, about a year later I was.
A year later. Okay, so we've dated you. But this entire time, you've immersed yourself in the Trent UFO sighting over the years as a UFO investigator. And now you are the official MC here for McMenamins UFO Fest. You'll be interviewing and introducing these guests all weekend long. Why is the Trent UFO sighting so important to ufology?
Well, number one, it's always a question of qualifying your witnesses. So you take a look at who they are. These were just basically common folk. They did not profit off this event. They had no motivation to report it. Really, as I recall, Paul Trent thought that it might be an experimental craft from Uncle Sam. That, of course, turned out not to be true. And they were reluctant. They later on were regretful. This was not a profit-making enterprise for them. They did not get more likes or more money out of putting the photos out there.
Yeah, in fact, they took a little bit of a hit for that because a lot of people accused them of lying, making it up, faking, that they were out to make money off of this, to get famous, to get rich.
Well, of course, you got to remember in historical context, this is not all that long after Roswell in 1947. And as we know from history, that's when the lid came down and the campaign was formulated by the military and intelligence community to ridicule, deny, ignore, chastise, and even, if necessary, eliminate people who talk too much about UFOs. So everyone who believes in UFOs was a nut, a tinfoil hat wearing crazy, unstable, unreliable, etc. So to be on the receiving end of that kind of criticism, nobody wants to be there.
What were the things that they were accused of doing? What, stringing something out on telephone wire or power lines
that
or
was one
fishing
theory.
line or a whatever?
Well, this particular sighting was actively debated. And, of course, one bit of history that's very important to being here is that the original McMenamins McMinnville UFO Festival was actually a lecture by one man, Bruce Maccabee, who had a stellar career working for the United States Navy. You can say he did essential defense work in the field of optical physics, lasers, etc. Well, he also was a lifelong advocate. He joined the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena back
Otherwise
in
known
the
as
70s,
NICAP.
right? And of course, it eventually went away over time.
And what did Dr. Maccabee say about the sighting?
He believes that there was no evidence that it was fabricated, faked, or anything else. The photos were exactly what they appeared to be. Clear photos of a large, metallic, unknown craft flying over the Trent farm, as described.
And then Edward Condon threw mud on it.
Exactly, and that's what's really interesting to me. A study was commissioned by the U.S. Air Force and the intelligence community to get the Air Force out of the overt public investigation of UFOs. So Dr. Edward Condon was hired to do a study. There was one point along the way where he was actually quoted as saying, "There's nothing to this UFO business. It's all nonsense, but I'm not supposed to come to that conclusion."
That seems like an
for another
objective
year."
investigator.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody you would want to, get to the bottom of this and not have preconceived notions.
But it gets better.
I know it does.
If you take that big, thick report, which would make a great doorstop, I have a copy of it at home, and in the back of it, they padded it with various UFO sightings, a lot of which are really, really good. And in particular, you will find the Trent photos back there and a report from an Air Force analyst stating that there's no evidence that they were faked, fabricated, or hoaxed. So once again, we have even the Air Force saying these were real, true images of something extraordinary and mysterious in the sky.
Do you think that the evidence still holds up today? And is it more so as time goes on, this really becomes more credible?
Well, way more so. And going back to Bruce Maccabee, he ran it through the ringer. He tried to figure out how it could have been done, etc. He was unable to escape the conclusion, having eliminated all the other possibilities, which is what you do as an investigator. There was only one good conclusion. The photos are real, true, and accurate.
Yeah. So, James, what's going on with a disclosure these days? I heard that there was some sort of a committee meeting that was supposed to happen this week. There's this federal secrets task force to declassify the government's federal secrets. Is this just another attempt at the disclosure? At disclosure, is it going to result in anything fruitful, in your opinion?
Don't know. But if you're going to be involved in this field, you have to live with a lot of frustration. And it really is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We gain a little ground, and they try to take a little ground from us. And the main thing is you've got to quit thinking of the government as a monolith. It is not one entity. And there are factions within the government, and they don't agree with each other. And there is a war behind the scenes going on.
It's not
over
Republican,
this whole
Democrat.
UFO.
It is bipartisan. You have people on both sides who want disclosure and those who don't. And certain individuals are influenced by outside interests.
Yes. And of course, an interesting reflection is that you begin to realize that wherever these UFO artifacts and bodies are, they may not be in the hands of government. They may be in the hands of private contractors. Private contractors don't have to tell the public anything. There are no requirements. And they're certainly not going to let go of their prize specimen, even if they can't figure out what to do with it or what it means.
Well, we have 2 whistleblowers in the past 2 years, David Grush and also Jake Barber, who have come forward and alleged exactly that the government is in possession of crashed UFOs. And, of course, there's Immaculate Constellation, and there's even the report that the CIA was involved in recovery. So there's a lot of information out there that says the U.S. has recovered crashed UFOs. And if we've recovered crashed UFOs, we have to assume that there was something piloting it. And if there was an extraterrestrial, that we may be in possession of bodies somewhere.
It's entirely possible.
And so where would those be?
With the researchers, once again.
No, I mean, where would the bodies in the craft be? Wright-Patterson? We know that...
Well, I think originally they were at Wright-Patterson, and I have, that gets into something that I discovered along the way. But I believe there's very strong evidence that that was their original destination. Where they are exactly right now, I could think of a number of possibilities.
At the Vatican?
No, I don't think so.
Oh. People are calling for the Pope to disclose, the new Pope. Is the Pope going to disclose what the Vatican knows? Because Grush says, a crash in 1933 went down, and for 10 years or so, they kept it in their possession, and then they brought the U.S. in to help them take it away.
Well, actually, if you look at the history, the Vatican very quietly and systematically over the years has been gathering information. And they also possess some excellent observatories that they've funded. This is obviously, at some inner level, is an important topic to the Vatican. And so, yes, do I think that the Vatican could get the ball rolling and kick the can over? Yes, that's a possibility.
Yeah. Well, and I also want to just say in passing here, rest in peace, Stanton Friedman, 6 years ago. And also rest in peace, Earl Grey Anderson, a guest of ours 2 years ago right here in this seat, who has left us. So I want to pay those two men the respects that they deserve. Any comments on that?
Absolutely. I remember both of them. Stanton Friedman, I recall meeting him, and it was a true honor. And the thing that I really loved about that man was that he was a true gentleman, and no matter who asked him a question, he would do the best he possibly could to answer it in a calm, logical, systematic manner. And I cannot tell you how many hundred times, because once in Roswell, he was 2 tables down from us. And I can't even count the number of photographs where people would come up with their cell phones and say, "Can I get a photo with you, Stanton?" And he always stood up and stood there formally with his big smile. And yeah, there's a lot of love, I think many people, and McMinnville in particular, had for Stanton Friedman. Earl Grey, I did not get to know him very well, but I do believe that he was a man of genuine compassion and interest in this field. He had a lot of understanding towards the experiencers. Some people who've had UFO experiences, it really isn't easy for them. It's traumatic. They suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder.
And, of course, another name, we mentioned him earlier, but also Bruce Maccabee, passing a year ago. James, thank you so much for joining us here from McMenamins UFO Fest. Brit Elders coming up next. Stick with us.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
A confirmed attack is taking place against the United States. Aliens from an unknown location have been reported in multiple states.
We are controlling transmission.
There's another world that awaits, far beyond what we can see and feel. A place that's anything but ordinary.
What you believe might not be. Step into the zone of the vast unknown. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, conspiracies and cover-ups. Into the paranormal we go with Jeremy Scott.
And welcome, everybody, to McMenamins UFO Fest here in McMinnville. Thank you so much. 25th year. Let's hear it for McMenamins in Hotel Oregon, because they've put on just an amazing event year after year after year. I came here first in 2018. I've been coming back year after year. I have a shirt. We love this. We are just everything and anything that has to do with McMenamins. And as you travel the Great Northwest, if you're hearing this broadcast abroad, you really need to check out some of the other McMenamins properties. I think some of our guests who got to see these for the first time would agree. And before we welcome our first guest of the morning, I want you to hear some of these names. Some of these are no longer with us, but these are all people who have presented over the years at the McMenamins UFO Fest. If you want to know anything about UFOs and you want to know them from some of the brightest and biggest names in this field, you come to McMenamins UFO Fest year after year. And if you go back to their website and you go back all the way to 2000, you will see many of these names that I'm listed, and I couldn't list them all, but I think we know all of these names. Stanton Friedman, Peter Davenport, Roger Lear, Travis Walton, Ryan Graves, Commander David Fravor, Kathleen Martin, Bob Lazar, Dr. Lynn Ketai, Grant Cameron, Linda Moulton Howe, Nick Pope, Stan Gordon, Richard Dolan, Jesse Marcel Jr., Dr. David Jacobs, Robert Hastings, Robert Salas, Bud Hopkins, Peter Robbins, and Dr. Bruce Maccabee. Can we get an applause for that lineup right there, ladies and gentlemen? That is amazing. Year after year. Year after year, McMenamins does this for you. So honored to have with us right now Brit Elders, who I talked with actually last year, was one of the first investigators. Would we call you the original investigator, or one of the first in the Billy Meier contact case?
Yes, I was one of the original investigators involved with actually looking into the physical evidence, the documentation behind the Meier case, which is much more than words.
Right.
In that case, we went in thinking we could just walk away from it after 24 hours and debunk it.
Right, because it was deemed a hoax, right?
Everybody said so, so why not believe them, right?
Yeah.
No.
But you found otherwise.
When we got there were hundreds of photographs. There was movie footage. There was audio recordings of the craft, but most importantly, there was metal. And there were witnesses. So, yeah, we got there, and there was a lot of physical evidence that nobody had talked about, but everybody had managed to dismiss the Swiss Palladium contact case and say it didn't mean anything. It was all a hoax.
All right, for those who aren't familiar, let's give them some background. So we're going back 50 years now. We're going back to 1975. Well, I didn't want to date you, but this much like the McMenamins or the McMinnville UFO case.
Yes,
this is a classic UFO case.
It is.
So we go back to 1975. What did Billy? What happened to Billy?
On January 28th, 1975, Billy Meier, who was kind of a Swiss watchman, farmer, and he only had one arm. He lost an arm in a bus accident in Turkey. He got a funny feeling. He was sitting in his kitchen, and he decided, okay, something's telling me I need to go outside. He went out, got on his moped, drove out into a field, and he looked up and he saw a craft. He didn't know what to do. He could hear it. It was unusual. He wasn't certain what it was. It landed, and a woman got out, and she walked up to him and talked to him. She said, "My name is Semyasa, and I come from the Pleiades." And that's how the Meier case began. It's still going on. The evidence actually presented from 1975 to 1982. We had a 7-year investigation on this case. It took us into the 80s. We traveled the globe. We were at more laboratories analyzing evidence. It was insane, but it was well worth it because we learned so much of what was going on, and we learned something very valuable, and I hope everybody in McMenamins will take this with them. Don't judge. There's too much happening out there, too much that really has to be paid attention to, and the world needs to start paying attention.
Yeah,
it's
I
really
agree.
important.
I agree. You mentioned he saw a woman.
Yes.
So she appeared to be human-like,
Yes, she did.
but she was from another planet.
She said she was from a planet in the star system of the Pleiades.
Were all beings like her, or were there other ones?
No, there were other ones.
Okay.
There were many others. And though she looked like us, and the Pleiadians that Billy Meier met looked like us, there are other beings out there that don't look like us. But then if you look around the room, none of us look like each other anyway. So I
Right.
think we can get through that.
Right. So greys, reptilians,
Yeah.
whole 9 yards. Every type of being we've heard over the years, perhaps.
That's right.
Perhaps.
Very possibly, and others we haven't heard about.
Right.
Because right now, I know a lot of what's going on is we're hearing about energy beings and these energetic and plasmic
Light
beings.
beings, orbs.
Yeah, that's really something that's happening now.
Yeah. And in fact, as we've talked on the program, I wonder if those are probes sent from extraterrestrials to grab our attention.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of people that think that's what's going on, is that they're being sort of dangled in front of us to see if we will pay attention. And there's enough now, I think, that are paying attention that we might actually begin to see some change.
Okay, so when this craft came down, is that the site that you visited where you found the metal?
No, that was one of the sites.
Okay.
Meyer met these people for a period of years, and they would show up in different places. The metal was actually given to him by the Pleiadians, and they told him, take this, find out what your scientists say about it. So when we were given the metal by Meyer, we said, what do you want from it? What do you expect? And he says, nothing other than take it to the scientists, let them look at it, and come back and tell me what they said. Well, what they said blew our minds, because the metal could not be made on this planet at that time. It was a cold synthesis. It was not just melted and formed like we usually dealt with metal. Plus, it had crystalline structure in it. And the really, really great thing about it was it had a rare earth element in it. Now, where would a farmer with a 5th grade education, where would he get thulium?
Something
A
not on
rare
the
earth
periodic
element.
table.
It's on the periodic table, but he wouldn't have access to it because it's very costly to extract, and it is hard to find.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this went through rigorous testing.
Oh boy, did it. Yeah. We tested in Europe, in the United States, obviously, in Japan. We went to laboratories a lot of people would recognize, like Boeing and Scripps Institute. And we went to a lot of laboratories that nobody had ever heard of. And we kept coming up with the same answer with different scientists all around the globe. We can't duplicate it. That's what they kept telling us. We can't make this.
Interesting. More to come. Talking about the Billy Meier case with Brit Elders from McMenamins UFO Fest. All right, Brit Elders, our guest from McMenamins UFO Fest, author of UFO Contact from the Pleiades, which is the inside story of one of the most remarkable extraterrestrial encounters ever reported, and that is the Billy Meier case, 1975. Again, where?
In Switzerland.
Switzerland, all
Yes.
right. And so you said that there were multiple crash sites.
Not
or
crashes,
landing sites.
Yes. It wasn't like it just happened once. It happened over a period of years. And that's why he had so many photographs and movie footage and audio recordings and so many witnesses. This went on and on and on.
Audio recordings of his interactions with these beings?
Audio recordings of the craft
Of
as
the
it
craft.
came in.
Yeah, you played some of these. I'm sorry we don't have them here, but he actually recorded the craft when they were landing.
Yes,
And
he
how
did.
many times or how many times was he able to capture this on recordings?
The recordings, there were 8 different times that he was able to record the craft coming in. And we had those analyzed, Oh boy, at the Naval Research Facility in Groton, Connecticut, we had the sounds analyzed by Hollywood because we figured, why not? They know what kind of sounds go into movies and things like that. Nobody knew how it could be duplicated, and they couldn't find anything to correlate to it either.
Right. And so there's, from an audio guy, you know, I deal with
Right.
audio waveforms all day. There are certain ways that we can test or tell if audio's been manipulated. The waveforms don't match up.
Right.
And I'm sure you had the experts like that who could say, that looks good or that doesn't look good.
That's right. And the interesting thing about the sound was it was one frequency that contracted and expanded. So it was doing this. And in the background was always a Schumann resonance. And that blew away all of the analysts that listened to it.
All right, we do have some questions coming in from the audience here. Do Palladians actually speak or use telepathy? Curious how any alien species would know English or any other language. Good question.
Very good question. Yes, they do speak, and they use telepathic communication. But they speak with us no matter what the language is, whether it's Swiss German or English or Russian or whatever. They can learn a language in a period of about 2 weeks, of what we view 2 weeks. And they learn it top to bottom. If they have a problem, they also have a language translator, which they can hold and they can speak into, and it will give them the correct translation. But usually, it's a situation where they know exactly what's being said, they've learned the language, they communicate with us.
All right. Another question we have, this one's from Jill. What do you think the purpose of these encounters are?
Oh, I think the biggest point that the Palladians wanted to make is that, and this is going back 50 years, we are not the only thinking beings in the universe, and this is something we have to realize. If we're going to want to pursue our life in the cosmos, we've got to recognize we're not alone and we're not making the rules.
Somebody's really quick here. They've texted in about the Schumann resonance. Any opinion on what is going on with that? It has been going haywire in the last year.
I don't know, but I think there's a frequency shift, and this is coming from other contactees too, of the planet. There is a literal shift happening in the planet, and not a bad thing, so nothing to be afraid of. But it's something that just changes the energy, and maybe it's our energy shifting what's happening in the earth.
What kind of messages did the Palladians share with Billy?
Oh, boy, everything. They talked a lot about creation, not necessarily singular God source, but creation. The creation exists in all things, and we need to recognize that within each other. They talked about all the different people that were visiting us, different civilizations, 105 different civilizations, and this was back in 1975. They talked about how important it is for us to learn to live together and to stop fighting and maybe learn to listen, because we're going to need to do that if we're going to move forward in our own future.
Right. Well, appreciate those questions. I understand that Billy has continued to have contact over the years. It didn't just stop, and that's normal for people to have these contact experiences, right? If they can handle it, right?
If they can handle it. Billy did at one point ask for more documentation. I mean, we're human. We wanted more photographs, more metal, more everything. And Billy kept asking for it, and the Palladians finally said, no, how much do you need? Really, how much do you need? At that point, the contact stopped for a while. Then they began again. Billy is still having contact to this day, both telepathic and physical, but he is not producing evidence. He said the contacts now are about his reaction and interaction with the Palladians, not about sharing information or proving it to anyone.
So is there anything that Billy would want to share with the audience if he was here right now?
Yeah, to wake up and realize we aren't alone. Yeah. And to really start moving forward in how we think and how we have a tendency to want to judge everything, maybe not be quite so judgmental.
Show of hands, how many of us believe we are not alone?
No.
Overwhelming consensus
We're
here in the room.
Yes.
Here in the room. So I understand you also investigated, well, a wave of sightings down in Mexico.
Yes.
When did that start?
1991.
Okay.
With the total solar eclipse in July of 1991.
Oh, so people do see UFOs around the eclipses.
Oh, boy, did they ever. They got footage from 13 different positions in Mexico City of this disc-shaped craft out there right next to the solar eclipse. It was really something. It started then that we know of. It might have been earlier. And it has continued through today. It's quite remarkable. I have thousands of videos that people have sent me from Mexico of every type of description of craft you can possibly imagine.
Right. And, of course, you're from Arizona, and
Yes.
right there, you on the border, you also have many reported sightings. But not just on the border, sorry, all around the state.
All over Arizona. There is a big flap going on right now on the border, literally, of things that they are seeing and they can't explain. And no, they're not drones and things like that, which is what everybody's initial reaction is. But Sedona's long been a hotbed. Prescott, Flagstaff, all of the areas in northern Arizona and in southern and eastern Arizona that are sacred land to the American Indians. The Tohono O'odham Nation has been having sightings now for about 7 months straight. I've got friends up at Sick Reeves Apache. They're having amazing things happen.
I was up near where Travis Walton, right, and Snowflake was taken.
Snowflake and Heber in that area.
Also in 1975, by the way.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So Billy and Travis share that date in common.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't realize that until now, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So, Britt, any final comments for the audience? Make sure you tell them about your book and your film and your website while we're at it.
Okay, the website is BritElders.com. That's one T in Brit. And please visit. You can see all the things going on, what's happening with the books. I write constantly, so there's always things there. And just everybody, thank you, McMenamins. Thank you, McMinnville.
Yes.
You've been wonderful. You're great. I love being here. I've never seen such a happy group of people. Mm-hmm. It's great. Thank you so much.
And the fun has only just begun.
Absolutely.
Wait till you go to the parade tomorrow.
I'm looking forward
All right,
to
Brit
it.
Elders, ladies and gentlemen,
Thank
from
you.
the Billy Meier case here at McMenamins UFO Fest.
"75 years ago, one of the classic UFO cases was reported near McMinnville, Oregon on May 11th, 1950.
A farmer and his wife took a photograph of a disc-shaped object that came over their farm.
Evelyn Trent was outside tending to the rabbits when she caught a glimpse of this strange object. She yelled for her husband, Paul, to bring the camera.
The McMinnville photograph taken by a poor rural couple in a remote area who didn't seek any press, and it showed a UFO very clearly in black and white.
The indications are totally that they actually saw some object floating past their farm and took 2 photographs of it.
This has never been debunked.
And we are here at McMenamins UFO Fest in McMinnville. I'm Jeremy Scott. Into the Parabnormal. We are here with Stanley Milford Jr., the Paranormal Ranger. I'm actually reading his book right now. You should feel honored because I don't get a chance to read many people's books because, they're like 300 pages, and I have a day job, and I do the podcast 3 days a week. But yours definitely spoke to me.
Thank you.
So without further ado, Stanley Milford Jr. graduated from the United States Indian Police Academy at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, worked continuously as a sworn law enforcement officer for over 23 years, served as the delegated Chief Navajo Ranger for over 2 years through March of 2019, and while with the Navajo Rangers, he oversaw a section called the Special Projects Unit, whose responsibilities included the investigation of cases that did not fit within the everyday parameters of law enforcement or criminal investigations. That means UFOs, doesn't it?
It includes UFOs, yes.
But all
Extraterrestrial
sorts
stuff.
of
Yeah.
paranormal activity.
Exactly. Hauntings, Bigfoot cases, witchcraft cases involving skinwalkers or shapeshifters.
You were, maybe as a child, as a teen, from what I've read, a little bit skeptical of the paranormal claims that you had heard growing up?
I was, but, growing up between northeast Oklahoma and the Navajo Reservation, there in Winter Rock and Fort Defiance area, I would hear these stories that I took as legend, some type of cultural story.
Something handed down from the cultures from years to year and may not be something that we're experiencing now.
I grew up in the northeast Oklahoma in a little town called Tahlequah, Oklahoma, which is the capital of Cherokee Nation. My mother was from there. And, I went to public school. From the time you're a child, you're learning science and biology and all of these things in school. And so you're taught to have some reasoning, and you're raised in that. And so for me, when it came to the supernatural, it was something that that I
you needed
took
more evidence.
Yeah, exactly. But there was times that over the years that I experienced things that couldn't simply be explained away by natural causes and with our known sciences and stuff. So hauntings and things of that nature.
And then the day or the night that changed everything, you saw a skinwalker.
Right. I experienced this, with my own eyes, and it was
shape-shifting. This is a shape-shifting entity.
It is at the time that I experienced it. This thing was running alongside my vehicle at highway speeds, and
while you were on patrol.
No.
This was before. Yeah,
this was before then. This was in my
like I said, in your
college.
Yeah, college days.
College years. But, yeah, but my father.
And you couldn't outrun it.
No.
It was right there, keeping up with you as you put the pedal to the metal.
Right.
Nothing but open road ahead.
Open highway.
So how'd you get rid of it?
Well, at one point, I look over and it's out the passenger side of the vehicle, and I locked eyes with this thing. Oh. And its eyes were self-illuminated. Its eyes, if you look around the room and you'll see these exit signs, that's exactly the color of this thing's eyes.
Glowing red eyes.
Yeah. Or orange,
orange,
fiery
amber.
looking.
Yeah.
And it's looking at me, and at that point, in witnessing something like that, your blood essentially turns to ice water. For me, I slid down as far as I could in the driver's seat, still being able to see over the dash. I didn't look back at it. I don't know what it did. I didn't look back at it. I just slid down and floored it as fast as I could, and matter of fact, that road comes to a T today, but I don't know how I made it around that corner because I was flying, and I come driving or sliding into our gravel driveway at home, and it was after midnight at this time, and I jumped out and I ran inside, and my father was still up watching TV, and he inquired, what's wrong with you? What happened? And I explained what I'd witnessed, and that's when he says, son, yeah, that's a skinwalker. So
have encounters with skinwalkers within the Navajo Nation ever taken a sinister turn? Like, has there been injuries or deaths from this being that we know of?
I would say definitely. I don't see how there couldn't not be fatalities related to this. Matter of fact, over the years, there have been people I know that there's one individual that very close friend. He used to be a producer with the TV series That's Incredible, years ago, and he wanted to do a documentary about this stuff. And both me and Jonathan Dover, my former partner during the Rangers years when we were special projects, he pressed and pressed and pressed to talk about these stories and do a documentary. And during that process, the initial process, we did witness stuff that was not normal in relation to seeing animals and things like that. And he got really, really sick, and to the point of almost dying from it. And so
because of the contact?
Well, because I think we were being contacted by these things, and
did they want you to stop investigating?
Yeah, they don't. And well, not necessarily stop investigating, but stop what we were doing with this producer. And at that point, me and John had a long talk, and we've had numerous television productions that. John and I have been on Secret of Skinwalker Ranch and other programs like that, and even under Netflix with the Paranormal Rangers and stuff. And so we'll be approached by these directors and producers at times that want to do documentaries related to this subject matter, and we have to decline them because we know that, and I've been attacked with this kind of energy and stuff like that, and it can be very dangerous. It's not something you have to believe in or understand. It's there. It's in our universe. And matter of fact, I met a young couple from the first time met here at McMinnville and did the presentation. Next morning, a young couple, that non-native couple, contacted me, and so they said, we seen one of your slides and it shows this image, and we seen that exact thing. And they were talking about the shapeshifter. And they said, we seen one of these things running by our vehicle out near Las Vegas. And our teenage daughter, was sitting in the back of the van, and she screamed, blood-curdling scream, and this thing was running by their vehicle. And she said, we don't have any contact or relations with Native American, any tribe or anything. But they were able to see this thing. And so...
We got to take a break. We'll be back with Stanley Milford Jr., the Paranormal Ranger here from McMenamins UFO Fest in McMinnville.
Into the paranormal.
Here in the backyard of the 1950 Trent family UFO sighting in McMinnville, Oregon. I'm Jeremy Scott from the 25th Annual McMenamins UFO Fest. We're talking with the Paranormal Ranger, Stanley Milford Jr. here. Question about shapeshifters. Somebody was wanting to know, can these only transform into animals, or can they appear as people?
The capabilities of these things, you have to realize that here in the United States alone, there's 574 Native American tribes that are recognized by the, and another 600 First Nations people in Canada, and then those indigenous cultures in Mexico. Many of those tribes have a version of this shape-shifting thing. And I know what I've learned with the Navajo culture is that long ago, this ability to change form into that of animals and other things was practiced and used primarily as a tool of war. So as the Navajo were in conflict with the Mexicans and other different tribes, the Apaches and Utes, there was conflict at different times. They would use this ability to travel great distances instantaneously, and use it as a tool of war to enter encampments and of their enemy and stuff. So it wasn't always, as it is now, used in the manner that it is. Today it's primarily and only used exclusively for negative or evil purposes. It's not It's not something that's used for any good.
Not something you don't want to mess around with.
Definitely not.
Can you outrun it though? If you,
I think the capabilities of these things are really virtually endless. I mean, we know about the ability to run at these extreme speeds, and from what John and I gather, these things can go into a dimension at any location and come out great distances, vast distances instantaneously almost.
Right.
And so the actual capabilities of these things are probably mind-blowing. I mean, we know within, like, the gurus in India and stuff can stop their hearts and be encased in glass and things like that, and so the human beings have a lot of ability to heal themselves completely, but we've lost the ability to be able to do those kinds of things. But if we only knew, it would blow our minds.
Interesting. Also, from the audience, talking about skinwalkers, do they run? Do they fly? Do they hitch rides on objects?
I think these things can change form even into non-animal forms. I think, the idea of doppelgangers, you have that around the world, and I think it originates from the German culture. But I think even with that, you have, because it's more or less witches within the Navajo culture that are practicing these abilities, and so you have witchcraft throughout the world, and a lot of these different things interlap. Like, people around the globe see UFOs regardless of the culture, regardless of the ethnicity or race. People have these encounters. Same with the what's called Bigfoot or Sasquatch, these kind of things. People have these throughout the world, whether it's in the Himalayas or the Yowies in Australia or throughout the United States.
Did
People
you
have
see
these experiences.
any of those out there while you're on patrol?
Twice I've seen investigations, seen this thing that people refer to as a Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Yeah.
Interesting. So how often was it that over the radio you heard, unidentified object or lights in the sky, and what was a typical response to that?
This was delegated to me and my partner at the time, Lieutenant John Dover, to handle these cases. There was a case where there was an elderly grandmother who, with the Navajo, traditionally, if you have livestock, you'll herd the livestock up into the higher elevation, what is known as sheep camp, during the summertime, during the hot months. And so this grandmother had herded her sheep in the mountains. One of these things that people refer to as Bigfoot or Sasquatch, she says this thing stepped over into her sheep corral, picked up one of her sheep, and took off with it. So she called the office to make a complaint, and there were 2 young rookie rangers that were assigned to that to go out and take the initial report and investigation. And but one of these young rangers was I like to refer to him as a comedian, because everything that comes out of this kid's mouth was a joke or laughing and carrying on, and it's just his personality. But I think the grandmother heard this and was offended by it. Either the 2 rangers were back at their patrol unit or at the corral or whatever, and she would hear him talking and laughing and whatever, and she took it that he wasn't being serious about this. And with the Navajo people, the livestock that's your economy. That's how you put food on the table. So it's very serious. And so when this happened, the grandmother got back on the phone after meeting those rangers, and I would imagine she probably scolded the chief ranger out at that time. And so he called a department-wide meeting with all of the rangers. I think we had 40-something rangers at the time, and he says he was adamant about law enforcement. He was old school. He said, you've chosen a career and a job for one of two things, to either help people or protect people. And he said, if you're in this business for any other reason, you're in it for the wrong reason. And he said, the door is right there if you don't agree with that. And and he looked over at me and John, and we were sitting next to him as commanders of SWAT and different things. And he said, and you two are going to handle all these cases. You're gonna oversee them. And we said, yes, sir. And we didn't volunteer to be X-Files or anything like that. It was just that when the chief gave us an assignment, our response would always be, yes, sir. And that's what we did.
Did anybody come in and try to undercut your investigation, or once you had reached some sort of conclusion or gathered some sort of evidence, they tried to whisk it away or influence you, tell you not to talk about anything like that?
You know, at times I witnessed what people refer to as men in black. They weren't actually dressed in black. They were dressed like I am today with the 511 uniform shirts and the tactical pants, like what was created in the early Afghanistan and the Desert Storm wars. The contractors would be wearing this kind of uniform. And these individuals would come out. They weren't, you could tell they were former military. They were like special ops people. John and I, being part of SWAT all our whole career, we would train at a Gunsight Institute in Paulden, Arizona. And we were training alongside other SWAT teams and Navy SEALs and Delta and these different special operations. So you would know, I mean, you would be bunking with these guys and at dinner time and stuff, hanging out or even having a beer or whatever together. And you get to know their mannerisms and their behaviors and stuff and their dress and demeanor and all of that. You can recognize it. And I've witnessed that in Winter Rock. There's a little restaurant in Winter Rock, the capital of the Navajo Nation, and me and Chief would a lot of times go have breakfast. And one morning when we were there was a group of couple of these guys, and they didn't know it, but I was taking pictures of them, documenting them, but yeah, they were there. And this was immediately following one of the biggest UFO cases that me and John investigated. So they were there during that time, and you could tell with them their mannerisms. So in that restaurant, you have all of these tourist people that are coming out to Monument Valley and Canyon de Chelly and places, and they're all excited, and they're eating breakfast there, and they're watching the news and stuff. These two individuals were switched on. They were talking on the phone to somebody, and everything else that was going on around them, they were tuning that out, and they were communicating with each other, and they were there for a mission. You could tell. So at times I've seen.
All right, hold that thought. We'll come back
Sure.
with Stanley Milford Jr. from McMenamins UFO Fest. Got to take a break for the top of the hour. Stick with us. Here with Stanley Milford Jr., the Paranormal Ranger from McMenamins UFO Fest. I wanted to give people some flavor because it wasn't just UFOs that Stanley dealt with. As we've told, skinwalkers, Sasquatch, variety. But you did mention, one of the big cases that you and Jonathan investigated. So was this something you saw yourself, or was this something you responded to and it had already happened and now you're talking with witnesses?
Well, for me, growing up I had mentioned that I'd experienced a haunting situation, incident. My mother had purchased an older home back in the East, and there was phenomenon within that home that would fall under hauntings and stuff. So I had that as a younger person. So I knew that with some of these different phenomena, that there was something there. There was something beyond what we know or accept in society. And so I've witnessed the UFO phenomenon. I think, there was one incident. John Dover and I were assisting National Park Service and Navajo Police, where there had been a drowning up on the San Juan River. The San Juan River is the northern boundary of the Navajo Reservation. So the Navajo Reservation is in all of that Four Corners area, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado, and the biggest part in Arizona. So the northern boundary of the Navajo Reservation. You have to realize a land area that's 27,000 square miles. That was the playground for me and John as Navajo Rangers. So we were up there on that river and searching, trying to recover this person that had drowned. We had traveled like 70 miles one day after putting the boat in the water at Lake Powell. And we got to a point where we ran into a debris field. They had been having really heavy rains. And so John, it was getting late in the evening, and John said, well, let's just pull the boat out and we'll camp overnight, which is what we did. We set up camp, and we're on the north side of the river, facing south and facing the river. It had gotten dark, and all of a sudden, from the west, I observed this object coming across the sky that was traveling in a zigzag pattern, sharp zigzags as it came across the sky from the west. And I got John's attention. I said, what the hell is that? And he started watching it, and as it got about the 12 o'clock position right above us, we could see that following in behind it, there was two F-16 fighters that had their afterburners on. And they were following right in line with this object. And then all of a sudden, from 12 noon to the edge of the horizon, this thing just sped up, and it was gone to the edge of the horizon. It kept the zigzag pattern, but it left the two F-16s just trailing along like a little kid on a tricycle. It was gone. It was gone. The estimate was well over like 10,000 miles an hour, because in about a second and a half, it went from 12 noon to the edge of the horizon. And John and I were just left, astounded by witnessing, something move at that speed. And so, that was one of the incidents we seen an object that was kind of mind-blowing.
Had you ever seen any behavior like that from an aircraft or whatever it was, whether it was a craft or?
I was the drone operator for the department, and I've been in various jet aircraft over the years and stuff, but there's nothing out there within our known arsenal that we're actively using, like in the military theater or that kind of thing, and any other nation, having or possessing that kind of technology where they would be using against their adversaries. If we had that technology readily available, we would be using it as a tool of war, and it was just beyond anything, in my opinion, anything earthly that we have.
Was the military involved in anything that you investigated? Did they have a presence there?
At times there were military involvement, but we were talking earlier at breakfast in Monument Valley on one of the mesas called Hunt's Mesa. At one time, there was a B-27 the military was flying, and they got too low and clipped that mesa, and it crashed over the top of that mesa and spilling on the other side. And I've witnessed every type of military craft that you can imagine. The SR-71 Blackbird come cruising through Monument Valley, and the different bombers and attack craft, helicopters. I've seen those things within that, over the reservation, and you have to realize that the Navajo Reservation is a sovereign nation. It's like a country within a country. And so there has to be authorization for certain activities, So like what you mentioned with the Men in Black, that's a sovereign nation within itself. So.
Yeah. All right, in the final few moments we have with Stanley, and I appreciate you so much being with us here at McMenamins UFO Fest. Interested if you have any thoughts on whether there might have been any sort of interdimensional portals or maybe even bases out there that could be housing some of these craft, or where these things could be coming from. The energy beings, the orbs, the whole 9 yards, Sasquatch, Skinwalker. I mean, let's throw it all together.
For John and I, one of the investigations I did was a haunting case within an office setting, 3 stories. And one of the more prominent phenomenon was what's often referred to as a port, which is A-P-P-O-R-T.
Right.
So we would have coins that would apport out of thin air, just falling into the floor from nothingness. And in that original 2-day investigation, there was a total of 66 coins that we collected, documented. And but there was an attachment formed to me from that energy. The last time I was here, a coin apported in our hotel room. And to this day, I had a regular doctor's appointment a couple of weeks ago. As I pulled into the driveway at the parking lot, I opened my door, and a few feet away from my door, a coin fell out of thin air on the blacktop. And so it still happens to this very day. But that phenomenon made me realize that the coins have to be materializing. They're starting it from point A to a point B. And the point B is wherever I'm at, and it falls in the floor. But it originated from somewhere. These have been primarily all U.S. coins, except for one incident where I had a Taiwanese coin that fell on my kitchen counter. So that's the connection among all of these things that are referred to as paranormal, and even the UFO phenomenon, is that these things are coming in to and from our atmosphere and our planet from some other location, whether it's UFOs or the Bigfoot. Bigfoot, me and John come to the consensus that these things don't live out there in the woods like a bear or a mountain lion or whatever. These things are entering and coming for whatever reason, and people are witnessing it. It'll leave tracks and stuff. And so
The Paranormal Ranger, he is Stanley Milford Jr. here at McMenamins UFO Fest. Let's hear it for Stanley. We'll be right back with Danny Sheehan.
Thank you.
Into the paranormal.
So honored to be joined here at McMenamins UFO Fest by Danny Sheehan, who has degrees from Harvard University, Harvard Law School, and has helped lead multiple lawsuits of historic importance, including 3 Supreme Court cases, the Iran-Contra lawsuit, the 3 Mile Island litigation, and the first sanctuary defense case. Prior to forming the Christic Institute in Washington, D.C., he litigated a number of high-profile cases, including establishing the right of news journalists to protect their sources, the Pentagon Papers case for the New York Times, the Watergate burglary case, and the Wounded Knee occupation case for the ACLU. He has directed the New Paradigm Initiative at the State of the World Forum and wrote his autobiography, The People's Advocate. Currently, Danny is serving as president of the New Paradigm Institute, which is a 501c3 public interest organization that is dedicated to UFO and UAP disclosure for the betterment of humanity and our planet. All the way out here from the nation's capital, where everything is, you're at the ground floor of UFO disclosure. Let's hear it for Danny Sheehan. So, the audience as well is great. Is this your first time out here to McMinnville?
Yes.
To
Yeah,
the
it
UFO
is.
Fest?
Yeah.
Just, you guys are you're in for a hoot.
Yeah.
You're really in for a good time.
As I understand it, yeah.
Right. So, what are the implications of UFO disclosure, and how close are we, Danny? I know you're right there. You have a group that is literally pushing the envelope to try to get this. What are we hoping happens? What does formal disclosure look like? I mean, we've had these congressional hearings. We've had behind closed door meetings. What really is the next step?
Well, the next step will be securing passage from the House of Representatives, the Senate bill that has been passed twice. The United States Senate has prepared and passed virtually unanimously out of the Senate a 64-page bill, which constitutes the kind of consensus agreement that has been reached by people inside the national security state, inside Congress, inside both political parties, as to what the process is that should be followed to disclose the information that the United States government has in its possession. And that's a very specific choreography that they're planning. And we've run into some difficulty initially over on the House side because the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Michael Turner, was the congressman from the congressional district in Ohio that houses the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Sure.
And that's where as you know, the craft that was recovered at Roswell back in July of 1947 was taken to Wright Field. We know that because of the telegram that was in the hand of General Ramey. He was foolish enough to have the photograph taken of the weather balloon debris in attempting to fabricate this false story.
Right.
But he had in his hand the telegram that he had received from headquarters, directing them to take the disc to Wright Field and to bring the bodies. So that we've de-encrypted that telegram through blowing up the negative of the photograph. So we know that, and so that Michael Turner, who is the head of the House Intelligence Committee, is basically in bed with the officials at Wright-Patterson, and also Wright-Patterson in Dayton, where it is, has become the focal point of the private aerospace corporations that have gathered around trying to get access to the technology so they can patent it and make trillions of dollars in the future by insisting that any access to this technology that the United States government might have would have to be paid for and licensed, even though it was the United States government that recovered it originally and simply put it into the hands of these private aerospace corporations for analysis. But the bottom line is that because we've secured the passage of the 64-page bill, which I can give you some details about the exact cartography of that, but the bottom line is the key issue that needs to be achieved right now is securing passage on the House side. So we've secured the removal of Michael Turner as the head of the Intelligence Committee. And we now have Crenshaw is now the head of
Dan Crenshaw.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
And so the bottom line is now that Crawford. I'm sorry, it's Crawford. Crawford is the head of the Intelligence Committee now, and the bottom line is if we can get him to sponsor the bill, the same bill on the House side, we're sure that if we can get Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House, to put it on the floor for a vote, that out of the 435 congressional members on the House side, we'll probably have 400 votes to support it. If we achieve that, if we get that set up, then what will happen is that the president will be asked by Congress to appoint a 9-person panel. We've secured passage on the House side already of the first 23 pages of that.
Is this the review board?
This is the review board.
Okay.
This is the 9-person review board. And that we've secured passage of 23 pages of the 64-page Senate bill over on the House side, which has ordered all 6 of the United States military services, all 18 of the United States intelligence agencies, and all 32 of the United States Defense Department agencies that are understood to be in possession of information about the UFO phenomenon, to gather that all together and digitize it and get an index set up and be prepared to turn it over to the National Archives. That we have achieved that. That order is an outstanding order now, and that information is due around the 1st of October of this year. Okay, and that when that information is put into the hands of the National Archives, what we're asking in this bill, the other remaining portion of the bill that we haven't gotten past the House yet, is to get the House to approve that after the Senate reapproves it, and that will be ordering the establishment of this review panel. If the review board then would come into place, would be appointed by the president, they would review all of this information, and they would publicly release around the 1st of October this year all of the information that dates back to January 1st of 1945.
Sounds good. I mean, we've been waiting 100 years.
Yep.
I mean,
and so that we're really close to this. If we can just get this part done, then everything that's 25 years old or more, basically from year 2000, everything earlier, which would cover Roswell, Aztec, Trinity, all of those major sightings, would
Phoenix
be compelled
Lights.
to be released. So that's where we are right now. So the clock is ticking down, and what the process is now is that we're in the process of putting pressure on the people primarily over on the House side to agree to this bill. Mike Rounds has agreed to reintroduce the bill on the Senate side. Chuck Schumer has agreed to continue to co-sponsor it. One of the other major co-sponsors of it was Mari, from Florida, right?
Marco Rubio.
And Marco Rubio has been one of the co-sponsors. He's now the Secretary of State, but he's also, very interestingly, the acting National Security Advisor to the president. And he's also, very interestingly, as of last week, been appointed to be the acting director of the National Archives.
Yeah.
Where all this information is supposed to go. So he's a critical player in this right now.
so it's all being set up.
It's all
Pieces
being,
are
it's all
beginning to
being
be put
set
in
up.
place.
And so that assuming that we can get this to happen, then the information is going to go over into the National Archives, and we can expect by October of this year a significant process is underway. Okay, and that the first thing that'll happen is the release of this information that is prior to the year 2000. And if we can get that, then there's going to be a huge download of information. What the New Paradigm Institute is that we have set up in Washington, it's the citizen group that is basically organizing people on the ground. And we're encouraging everybody to contact the New Paradigm Institute. It's newparadigminstitute.org. And sign up to become members of Citizens for Disclosure.
I want you to give that information and also contact your congressmen and women as well. We'll be back with Danny Sheehan from the New Paradigm Institute from McMenamins UFO Fest in just a moment.
We have seen Congress pay more attention to the subject in the last 5 years than we have seen Congress pay attention in the last 80.
There was recovered craft. Contact and experience is happening all over the world. They say, it's an old rumor back in the late 40s or 50s, a flying saucer crashed out on Hart Canyon Road.
They went up over on top of the mesa, and they said there were 16 bodies were laying there.
Would you say that what you experienced had some capabilities that couldn't be explained?
Well, that was the most confusing part about what we were observing.
From McMenamins UFO Fest here in McMinnville, Oregon. Let's hear it again for Danny Sheehan from the New Paradigm Institute. Right there, boots on the ground, Washington, D.C., fighting for disclosure each and every day.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
terrific.
Do you need help? in this effort?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the whole point. What we're doing is we're organizing a thing called Citizens for Disclosure. If people go to that website, the newparadigminstitute.org, there'll be a link there that you can click onto, and you can become members of Citizens for Disclosure. There's going to be a group in each of the 435 congressional districts. There are going to be 50 state coordinators, and we're going to start pouring it to the individuals in the House and Senate. And we're going to have a statement that we're going to demand that they sign. Either they're going to sign the statement agreeing to support a full disclosure, and if they don't sign it, then we're going to be reporting to all of the constituencies when the election takes place in 2026 for the new Congress to elect someone who agrees to support full disclosure. And even if the people have to run primary races against the people who are there, who are refusing to do their constitutional duty. I mean, they are not overseeing this program. This program is going on deep in the bowels of the national security state, and the Congress of the United States is not adequately supervising them as they're mandated to do in the Constitution. So that we have reports, very credible reports now, that this program that's, as you know, is called Immaculate Constellation, is potentially involved in shooting down UFOs, luring them in, and then shooting them down so that they can get a hold of the technology, because they're trying to back engineer the technology of these UFOs to develop a whole new generation of weapons, to be able to deliver nuclear weapons into the heart of Russia or China from launch within 2 minutes.
I can ask you, why would we need to reverse engineer craft now? Has the technology changed over the years since, say, the craft that we may have recovered at Roswell?
Well, what it is that they've apparently not been able to back engineer all of the technology. That what we have is kind of jury-rigged craft, who can apparently perform some of the most recently, Matthew Brown has just started talking about this. He's been interviewed by he was actually in the State Department. Okay. He was in the State Department, and it appears to be, I'll get to talk to him soon, hopefully, but that I think he was in the Defense Intelligence Agency as well. He was assigned responsibility for reviewing classified documents and determining whether they were properly classified. And he ran into a spate of documents and photographs and videos that appear to have been underclassified from what are normally done. So he ran into them. For example, and you may recall, I would recommend that everybody get a look at it. You can go to newparadigminstitute.org, and we've got a link on there. So you can get the recent interview that George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell just did. They'll be here later on this afternoon, and they're going to be doing their report, I think, at
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock tonight. And I'm sure they're going to talk about Matthew Brown, and he's actually seen the videotapes of we were monitoring a group of Russian intelligence vessels in the Pacific that had come to a particular location and were hanging out there for a couple days, and our surveillance equipment kind of focused on them, and we were monitoring them when this football field size craft, a triangular craft, just materialized right above them. And it appears that the Russians had somehow figured out that this was a location where these craft materialized. Okay, and so he saw the video, and he realized what was happening here and began to investigate what this program was that was going on, and has become convinced of what we've known about for some time, that there is this cabal, this tiny group of people deep in the bowels of our national security state that are operating completely independently from Congress oversight, independent from even knowledge on the part of the Secretaries of Defense and the heads of the CIA, and even presidents are unbriefed on this, and that this is extraordinarily unconstitutional, what's going on here. And so that what we're in communication now regularly with people inside the Maine Justice Department, inside the criminal division, inside the racketeering division, to investigate this. We have FBI people now that are on board to conduct investigations of this group, and that we're hoping that this type of pressure on them is going to cause them to come forward to start testifying to Congress. And so we've also written a 13-page enhanced whistleblower protection statute to apply specifically to UFO whistleblowers. And we've presented this to the House of Representatives to try to get this passed. And if we succeed in getting the information flowing, it's flowing fairly well into the Senate Intelligence Committee, but the Senate Intelligence Committee hasn't agreed to hold any public hearings about this. We've got like 40 different witnesses that have come in and under oath have provided depositions to the Senate Intelligence Committee, and they still haven't held any public hearings. The House Oversight Committee has held public hearings, and they've appointed this task force that Congresswoman Luna is now chairing. And so all of this is going on in Washington, D.C. right now. I am have a more prosaic or normal kind of jurisdiction in this area. My job is to ascertain all the information that meets the rules of Rule 11 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, of what evidence we have that can be presented in court and to a jury that is court admissible pursuant to the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, and be able to establish a bona fide litigation so that we can act like we have in the Karen Silkwood case that we did, the Iran-Contra case that we did, the 3 Mile Island case that we did, that you reviewed some of that earlier, that our role is unique in the fact that we are attempting to secure the information through professional investigations. We have a professional lie detector equipment, the psychological stress evaluators for testing people's credibility. You know, we know what the rules of evidence are for admissibility in court. We know where the various jurisdictions are, where there might be proper venue to bring these causes of action. So we provide kind of a unique service in the midst of all of these discussions. You have people speculating wildly about what some of the facts are, that, you know, my mother's brother had someone, a cousin, tell them this. You know, that isn't going to get us there.
No.
That what we need to have is court admissible evidence from people who have firsthand information. If there is secondhand information, it has to be of a confessional nature that has been articulated contrary to the legal interests of the person who says it, in order to get it admitted into court. So that's what we're doing. The special service that the New Paradigm Institute is providing the kind of legal counsel that we need to have to get this done so that we can force the legal structures to respond, either a court or the Congress that has to respond to this. And we're also at the New Paradigm Institute dealing with, once we get past this big, long delay in acknowledging that it's real, getting to the issue of what do we do about it?
Right.
Because that up until this point, none of the legal institutions are dealing, or academic institutions are dealing with what do we do about this? Because they're all still pretending it isn't true, because the national security state keeps telling them that it isn't true, including ARROW, this all-domain anomalous resolution office.
Time is flown on by. We got to go to break. We'll be back to complete our conversation. So final questions, get those in now for Danny Sheehan from McMinnville, Oregon. Danny Sheehan of the New Paradigm Institute here from McMenamins UFO Fest in McMinnville. I got to ask, Danny, what's your dog in this fight? Why are you personally interested in UFO disclosure? Have you had contact?
No.
Do you know people who have?
Oh, I know tons of people who have. I was legal counsel for Dr. John Mack at Harvard University when he got dragged up in front of the faculty committee at Harvard. So I got to meet dozens of people who've had direct face-to-face contact with beings from UFOs, and I was the one that was contacted when President Jimmy Carter was elected back in November of 1976, and wanted to be briefed on all the UFO information. That I was contacted by the Congressional
So you've been in this for
researchers.
50 years as well.
Yeah, 48 years. Wow. Yeah. And so I've been involved in this deeply. You know, I represent Lou Elizondo in preparing the complaint that he filed with the Defense Department Inspector General. I've done a lot of the primary legal work that's been involved with the UFO issue down through the years. For 20 years, I was general counsel to Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project. I was legal counsel to Steve Bassett's Citizens Hearings on Disclosure back in 2013. So I've been in charge of vetting the witnesses to present, so that we're careful to present those that are the most credible and most verifiable stories. And that's what we're doing in Congress right now, is we're repeating that process right now. So I've been dedicated to this because what's going on is so profoundly unconstitutional that the secreting of this information and concealing it from Congress and actively lying to Congress as they are. They've repeatedly committed perjury to Congress, insisting that there's no such thing.
We don't know anything about the Malmstrom incident.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we don't know.
Right. That was something,
right.
wasn't it?
All right, let's try to get to as many of these questions
Sure.
as we can, the time we have left. Does this mean everyone on the House and Senate committees know that the content that they will hopefully eventually disclose and make public, are they aware of it? Do they know that it exists?
Well, they know that it exists, but they still have not been briefed in on the full details of this. As on November 13th of this last year, Lou Elizondo appeared before the House Oversight Committee, and he was asked by Congressman Burleson from Arkansas, look, if you and I were allowed to get into a skiff, given the classified clearances that I have, he said, and that you have, would you be able to provide to me here in Congress the definitive evidence to show that we're in possession of at least one or more non-human origin extraterrestrial spacecraft and the bodies of people that have been recovered that are non-human?
Sure.
Would you be able to do that? And Lou was compelled to say, no, I wouldn't be allowed to do that. It'd have to be someone above me that would be. So he's sitting right there telling Congress that they're not giving them the information, even behind closed doors, even in skiffs, so that there's a whole lot of detailed information that Congress does not have still. And that's the key information, because the members of the Congress are saying unless and until they're told that information, they don't dare do certain things.
If members of the UAP task force, like David Grush, can't even get that information, what makes us think Congress can?
Well, no, David Grush has it.
Well, no, but he says that the UAP task force was denied information.
That's right. No, he has it, and he's been hired by Burleson to be his staff person, but he's not authorized to give the information to Congress because it's behind a security clearance level that he's not authorized to give them. All the information basically that's been given to the Congress so far basically has been authorized by the United States Defense Department Office of Pre-Publication Security Clearance. Okay, and so that means that there's a high level of decisions that's authorized the information so far to be given to Congress, but they haven't given it all to them. And that's what we're in the process now of trying to get done, to get that key information provided to them. And the people who are holding the information back keep on insisting that, well, we can't tell you this. You can't handle the truth. You know, even Congress can't handle the truth. And we keep saying, like, what? You know, what are you talking about? What is this?
I don't know. Audience, can we handle the truth?
Yeah.
I think we can handle the truth. Lay it on us.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that you don't know what it is. So, I mean, to say that you can handle it, I mean, I appreciate your boldness, but the reality is, I mean,
the reality isn't that extraterrestrials are piloting these craft and landing and crashing?
That much is true.
Okay.
That much is true, and we're getting that information. I mean, we're being told.
But it's all the other stuff.
Yeah, there's something else that they keep on saying that, we can't tell you this.
Can't talk about free energy.
Yeah, well, no, even that. It isn't that they're perfectly clear that they've admitted that they're in the process of back engineering the technology, which entails obviously the anti-gravity dimensions of it, the superluminal propulsion systems they've got, all of this stuff that they're doing, but they keep on pretending that there's something. We had the same problem in the Pentagon Papers case when I was representing the New York Times. But we're in chambers with Judge Murray Gerfine, that the Whitney North Seymour, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York for the Nixon administration, brought an action in front of the Federal District Court in the Southern District of New York to get an injunction against us at the New York Times, prohibiting us from being able to publish the 47 volumes back in 1971 in June. And we were in chambers with Judge Gerfine and the United States Attorney, Whitney North Seymour, said, if there's information here in these 47 volumes that if it were revealed would irrevocably damage the national security of the United States. And so I said, like what? And he said, well, I'm sorry, I can't tell you because you don't have the proper clearances. And so Judge Gerfine says, well, what about me? You're coming to me to ask for an injunction. Surely you can share the information with me. And Whitney North Seymour said, no, we can't give it to you either. And so I said, good, are we done? Are we done here? Right. You won't give us the information. And so in that case, we won because the judge refused to give them the injunction if they wouldn't tell them. But in the situation now where we're trying to extract it from them, they're just still refusing to give it to Congress. They're refusing to give it to anybody. And they keep on coming up with this excuses that you can't stand the truth and that our government wouldn't be able to stand revealing the truth. And we say, like what? Yeah. What are you talking about here? And they keep on saying that. So that we're in the process now of trying to get at least the members of Congress, at least in the Senate Intelligence Committee and the House Intelligence Committee, to be told about this, because just as a matter of intelligence, we have to know what it is they're talking about. Yeah. So that's the stage that we're at right now. That's where we're hung up, trying to get them to cough up that information. And Lou Elizondo has told them that we have the information, but they won't tell them what it is. Yeah. Dave Grush has told them that there's more information, but he won't tell them what it is because they're afraid. They're afraid that they'll be retaliated against. And the fact is that there's a wet team that has been assigned responsibility to assassinate anybody.
Oh.
If they violate that level of their security clearance.
Yeah.
So you can tell that's a significant deterrent.
Or maybe intimidate them to just be quiet.
Well, it'll do that.
Yeah.
it'll
All right,
it'll
somebody
definitely
wants to
intimidate
know,
them.
Is the New Paradigm Institute national only? Do you have global partners? Are you seeking global partners?
We have global partners. We're working with people in Canada. We're working with people in the UK. We've reached out to 32 countries now to try to get their parliaments to pass the same statute, basically, that our United States Senate has, so that we can set up this same systematic process by means of which we can undertake a controlled disclosure that'll put into place a responsible team of oversight that are dedicated to getting full disclosure, but are doing so according to a choreography that will enable us to adjust our institutions to absorb this information, the economic impact of this technology, the impact on our religious institutions, the effect that it'll have on our geopolitical structures, our international treaties, et cetera. There's a whole series of things that need to get done. As I pointed out, they're not doing any of those things because they're still stuck at the question of whether it's true or not. Because they're being lied to by authoritative sources inside the national security establishment saying it's not true. And so until we can get them past that, they won't deign to start working on what are we going to do about it. So the New Paradigm Institute, in addition to organizing the citizens around the country and pleading with all of you to get in touch with us so you can become members of the Citizens for Disclosure, so we can send to you the crafted packages of exactly what the information is you need to give to your congressman that comports with his or her specific interests to get her or him to do the right thing. We can do all of that. And at the same time we're doing all of that to compel disclosure, we're working on the new paradigm, coming up with specific proposals for Congress. This is what you do with regard to the economics of this whole thing. This is the kind of treaties that we need to have. For example, we need to have a treaty entered into with all the nation states, all 193 nation states on our planet right now, that no one will be allowed to utilize the technology from these craft for making weapons. And they have to eschew the ability to use these for weapons. We've got to get that kind of a treaty established. You can't get them to agree to do it because they're still pretending that it doesn't exist. Okay, so we have to have somebody doing the work based upon the assumption that it is true, because we know it's true. We're not just assuming it's true. We've talked to the people who are firsthand witnesses. If we could get it put into a legal case, we could prove it.
Right.
And that's another thing that our office is doing, is figuring out what the legal case is. That's why we're working on drafting the Federal Criminal Racketeering Act, RICO, the racketeer influenced and corrupt organizations lawsuit and criminal indictment against the people like we did in Iran-Contra.
Yeah.
We're the ones that filed the federal racketeering charges against Oliver North and Secord and all of those guys that were smuggling the weapons to the Contras in total violation of the Boland Amendment back in 1984. So that we're the office that has done that, so we know how to do it, so we're engaged in that process, but we need everybody's help because we really have to have basically a citizen uprising. A citizen uprising to demand that the Congress of the United States fulfill its constitutional obligation to get this information to us as a democracy. That's what the New Paradigm Institute is doing.
Danny, in one word, from your legal background, does all of the evidence on UFOs hold up in court?
There's zero doubt.
Zero doubt.
Zero doubt.
Zero doubt. Let's hear it for Danny Sheehan and for everybody here from McMenamins UFO Fest, and for yourselves being a wonderful audience. My name is Jeremy Scott. The show is Into the Paranormal. You know this is McMinnville, and you know who you are. We'll hope to see you back next year for more or on our next podcast. Good night. God bless.